So, for the longest time, I have suffered from debilitating ailments, if you will. And I think that part of my life has shaped me to who I am today. Because I never accepted that my ailments um, would ultimately define me. And so I moved through life in a way where I questioned everything. When I looked at my ailments, such as migraine headaches, which used to send me into um, ER, the emergency room, where they used to pump me with Demerol, like this is me mocking a syringe going into my temple. Um, I wondered, well, why is it me uh, as the only one who's suffering from these ailments at such a young age? And I remember it was, I think, probably around at least seven, if not before, that I had this headache and I was completely useless. I just had to go to sleep until the headaches went away. Um, so I've developed this, I guess, resilience where I feel like things aren't the way they're supposed to be. Because for my ailments, I used to be given medicine, whether it's Panadol when I was in England, to Tylenol when I got here, and then they got stronger and stronger to prescribed medicine called Imitrex, and then codeine and Demerol when I used to go to the ER. That resilience has shaped who I have become today, and it's defined me as a person, especially when I was on Wall Street right after graduating school. So when I graduated school, I entered the banking industry, and while I was in the banking industry, the narrative that continued to resonate in my mind was, I've got to change the world. Now I know that sounds ridiculously cliche, and by all rights it is cliche, but it just stuck with me. Every morning I woke up hating my existence when I had to go to work at Merrill and then JP Morgan, some of the largest banks in the world, but I just hated what I was doing for them, which was completely meaningless. There wasn't a connection with me as an individual who has intrinsic value and who has a connection to society, that was working in a glass house, if you will, these corporate entity buildings that's seemingly completely disconnected from society. In fact, it was so disconnected from society that they viewed society in a very abject way. Well, I stayed there for 15 years, and I treated it as my training ground. And what I mean by that is, what I've learned from them is how to be the best at anything that you do. Cross your T's and dot your I's. And what I mean by that is giving presentations, accessing people who are inaccessible, and being able to ask for whatever you want. So when I left Wall Street, I left with a certain confidence. And that confidence was, I can go and make money anywhere that I want. Why not make money in something that I enjoy doing? So I proceeded to take some time off, about 7 years off after Wall Street, to raise my kids, because I did go through some personal crisis, and I just felt that I needed to be connected with my kids. And at the time I left Wall Street, my kids were in the 7 to 4 range. One was 7 and one was 4 years old. So that was a time that I cherished and remembered, and I knew that I would cherish it because I heard too many stories of people not spending enough time with the children, only to see them leave the home and move on with their next phase of life, and the parents reeling and being left alone. So I took that gap of 7 years to basically cultivate the children, for the reasons that we gave birth to them. After that, I ended up not going to back to Wall Street, but deciding that I wanted to work on something that mattered to the world. Not mattered to me, of course, mattered to me in the sense that I would enjoy doing it. I would enjoy a sense of fulfillment doing it. And at that time, I didn't really care about making money at it. I just wanted to do it. In reality, you certainly can give charity, but I think if you don't connect it to, if you give, if you don't connect it to empowerment, and if you don't connect it to, um, the word escapes me, but empowerment is probably the best word I can use at the moment. The validity of what you're going to give isn't just not going to be there. So I set out to understand or come up with a problem in the world that people really needed, and then wrap a business around it so it would be a social impact business, that spoke to me, that I enjoyed, that I would have passion behind, and then basically approach it in a systematic manner, and use it in a systematic manner. And when I say approach it, I mean implement it systematically, because that is the only way things get done, is if you're systematic about getting things done. And of course, you have your passion and all the other trimmings around it. COVID has hit. It's been 5 years since I've been working on this startup as a founder, where I'm bringing pure food and democratizing pure food again. Now, as COVID has encroached in on our lives across the world, it's beginning to exacerbate or expose even more so the fragility of our food systems. So the decision I made to go into food and democratizing food again, as it was 100 years ago when we used to live around farms and food was democratized and farming was democratized, um, this I feel that the world needs this solution even more. However, with this pandemic and with people rethinking their own lives, um, and they are thinking about food, where I'm trying to raise money, I found that I need to mix things up a little bit, and or shake things up, because the traditional way of raising money, while still there, in Canada, I think it's gotten much harder. And so I've decided that I'm going to pivot and, um, really stretch myself in such a way where I bring that word resilience, or I bring that feeling of resilience, that streak of resilience, um, another step up. So while I have this product, I'm feeling very vulnerable as a person who lives in a condo, as a person who earns money, or at least is trying to earn money, and a person who relies on the state to give us food. I feel like because of the pandemic and because of what I'm seeing coming up into the intermediate and the, um, coming future, the far future, 2 to 5 years from now, I see that our supply lines, water, food, electricity, internet, everything that we've come to rely on are at stake, are extremely fragile. And if any one of these things is taken away from you, have you ever thought about what might happen? And so what I'm doing is I'm going to take my existing business, which is a startup, it hasn't commercialized, and continue to raise money at it, but do it in such a way where I'm making my entire life resilient. Whereas I'm not going to rely on the state for electricity. I'm going to rely on myself for food. I'm going to rely on myself for, water, and come up with ways to live like a nomad, but also move into. It doesn't have to be a nomad where I'm constantly traveling. That's a strict definition of nomadism, where you're almost aimless, you're vagabonding. But I'm seeking a locale or a vertebrae of a locale around the world where, or around at least North America, where I might go and purchase some land, or join a community. And what is that community? I don't know. I actually don't know the answer to this entire question. But what I do know is I'm going to take the jump and ask questions later. So what I've done is I've basically sold everything and given everything away, to my detriment. Like, I've lost money on a lot of things, and even with some pieces of furniture that I might even have an emotional attachment, they have also I've given away or I've sold off. Some things I've kept, like my artwork, which a friend of mine has been gracious enough to keep for me. But the do and ask questions later is my purchasing a travel trailer where I can live, and a truck, and I'm just going to drive. And right now, I actually don't even know where I drive. I've got a couple of ideas which I'll share later, but and the misgivings between deciding upon, should I drive to this location or should I drive to that location, or should I go along this route or should I go along this route? And all along, I'll be meeting people along the way, interviewing people along the way, and asking them, what is it? What does it take to be resilient? What does it take to have water? How do you clean water? How do you practically live off grid? Now, so many people have done it, but those people who have done it are up here. They've already turned the switch on. They are able to go through their lives, and over the last 20 years, they've managed to move themselves off grid. We're now facing a situation where we may need to go off grid in a very, very quick manner. And so how can I bring in those 20 years and essentially give you a turnkey way of going off grid right away? And so there'll be different conversations that I'll have along my journey as I'm driving through perhaps Western Canada and then throughout the United States and headed towards Texas. The reason why I'm headed towards Texas is because that society is free at the moment, in the sense that I can meet people face to face, do business with people face to face, raise money with people face to face, and then go into manufacturing, which is what I need to do. So I think that is the theme of what I'm trying to accomplish, and potentially the chapter around the next chapter that I would be looking to write. With love. Thank you.